I live in Pattaya. I've been a bar manager in a busy street with 22 staff. So the first thing we need to address, people that are on a salary versus people that are freelancing. What does it mean to be on a salary? Well, as someone on a salary, it means you have to show up to work every day. It means you have set hours. You can't go home before a certain time, like any other job. Whilst you're at work, there's rules and regulations. There's a certain degree of insurance that goes with partying with people that work in a bar, as opposed to partying with people that are on the street. Why would someone choose to be on a salary instead of working freelance? Well, usually it's the younger people. Often the people have grown up a long way away from Pattaya. They're usually much younger, roughly aged 20 to 30. And because these people are younger, they haven't had as long to learn English, so it's likely that their English will be a lot less than someone that's worked with foreigners for many years. The other side of the coin, someone that freelances. How does that work? Someone that freelances usually doesn't belong to any one bar. That being said, freelancers can attach themselves to a bar at any time. And sometimes I've seen freelancers join themselves to multiple bars at the same time. Now you may very well meet someone in a bar and they're not dressed in any sort of recognizable uniform. They just look like a member of the public. And if you offer to buy them a drink, you'll notice that their drink's a little bit more expensive than you expected. And when they collect it from the bar, they get a little commission slip and they'll put that in their pocket. But for the most part, freelancers work in nightclubs. They have nothing to do with that nightclub. They just enter of their own accord and leave when they want. They're not known by management and they come and go as they're pleased. There's no monetary contract at all. Now, worth mentioning is, when you hang out with someone that's on a salary, if you guys leave the bar and something goes wrong, in an unlikely scenario that, they steal your wallet or your phone, you can just go back to that establishment that night or the next day and say, this is what happened, your staff person did this, how can we sort this out, can you remunerate me? An unofficial insurance policy, because when someone works for a bar and they are on salary for that bar, they're representing a brand, and that should provide customers with a great sense of security. We have to touch on physical health and STIs. Many of the bars blood test their staff on a regular basis. Now, whilst freelancers may do the same for themselves, there's no business overseeing that. Now, we can't talk about bars without talking about barfines. What on earth are they? Why on earth should I have to pay the bar if I want to take one of their staff out to go party? Hear me out here. This is the way I look at it, and this is the way I explained it to customers that would query this when I worked at the bar. Picture this scenario. I'm retired, but my best friend is still working. He's a bricklayer and he's working on a big job site just down the road. I wake up in the morning, I look outside, oh my gosh, it's sunny. I would like to go to the beach. I would love Damo to take the rest of the day off work and come with me to the beach. So I trottle on down to the work site. Excuse me, foreman. I speak to the big foreman and I tell him that I'd like to take his bricklayer with me to the beach for the rest of the shift because I think it's a lovely day. Now the foreman's a reasonable guy and he says to me, all right, Sam, I can tell you're a good guy and I want Damo to go to the beach with you. There's a lot of bricks that still needed laying today. This is gonna cost me money, so I'll cut a deal with you. You pay me for the rest of the day's work that he owes me, and then I'll let him go to the beach with you. That is exactly what's happening when you pay a bar fine to take one of the staff people out of there. Exactly the same. And of course, the add-on to that is that person is known to that business, and of course, if you have any dramas down the track, you can go back and you can speak to the owner, the bar manager, the mamasan, the foreman. So how much are bar fines? It very much depends on the establishment, and it's not something that salary staff set, it's something that the owner sets. Just like this example with Damo that I gave, bar fines are on a sliding scale. So if you take Damo to the beach 4 hours before the end of his shift, he doesn't owe the foreman that much more brickwork. So the foreman will let Damo go with you for a lower price because he simply doesn't have that much more work to do, that much more bricklaying, that much more waitressing, that much more table cleaning to do in that shift. But if you arrive on the job site at 7 a.m. sharp, you're going to get asked to cover that person's entire day's potential earnings. That person might have made the owner 2,000 baht that day, thus the bar fine is 2,000 baht. If it's closer to the end of the shift, you might only have to pay 800 baht. Less popular with other partygoers, it might be as low as 300 baht. Worth noting, the salary staff, they'll know what the bar fines are and they'll know the sliding scale. Often the bar fines reduce at certain times, so 8 p.m. and then drops at 10 p.m. and then 2 a.m. Now the bar staff will know about this, but they have no say in it. Across the board, bar fines are not negotiable, so don't waste your time. Now this brings me to the next point, a massive point, and that is remunerating your new friends for the time that they've spent with you. Unlike barfines, remunerating people for the time they spend partying with you outside of their work, outside of the bar, that fee is not always set and it's more negotiable. Now here's something I learned as bar manager, spending all those months observing customers coming and going. Partygoers can save themselves a lot of grief by having that quiet discussion with the people that you're partying with early on in the conversation. That way you're not getting to the end of the night, all your eggs are in one basket. Talking finances and costs, I'm not really comfortable addressing, but I'll have a crack at it. Addressing those remuneration costs. If you're having fun with someone in a bar and you want to take them to a nightclub just for a couple of hours to get a drink, I'd expect to pay at least 1,500 baht. Now, if you expect that new friend to rock and roll with you all night at Mist or Insomnia or Republic and drink and have shots and hang out at the table, I'd expect to pay between 2,000 and 3,000 baht. Now it differs a little bit for people who are freelancing. I would expect to pay a bit more, 3,000 to 4,000 baht. The next morning, God forbid you party so hard that your new friend ends up back at your accommodation, 5 a.m, they fall asleep, and in the morning you're starving, you want breakfast, and you can't wake them up. What do? There's two things here. If that person is on a salary and they work in a bar, then they have to be back at work at a certain time of the day, usually between about 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And that person's lifestyle is probably pretty nocturnal by this point, and they're probably used to sleeping from roughly 5 a.m. right through till 2 p.m. So if you're trying to wake them up at 10 a.m., you're really interrupting that essential sleep pattern. People who freelance, they're a bit more flexible in that they don't have a set time that they have to start work. They might be more open to getting up and going out for breakfast with you. Just because someone leaves early in the morning doesn't mean that they haven't enjoyed their night or they don't like you. They've probably got a list of errands that they've got to attend to. So working in the bars, I was lucky enough to get a bit of an insight into the lives of those people that work in those bars. So a lot of the people in their early 20s that come to Pattaya to work, they're not arriving with so much money that they can rent their own condo or house share with a friend. So often that bar will offer them accommodation as part of their salary package. So I've seen a bunch of these accommodation options, and while they're usually safe and clean, inaccessible to the general public, they're also pretty bloody basic. Often 2 or 3 beds squished together. The bedroom may not or probably doesn't have air conditioning, maybe just some fans, and not a lot of privacy. If your new friend is reluctant to head home at 9 a.m. in the morning, it could be because they're enjoying your air conditioning. If you found your way into one of those super exclusive, expensive bars, inevitably the people that you meet in there partying, they probably have higher financial expectations, and if you want to drag them out of that nightclub, they may ask to be remunerated between say 5,000 and up to 10,000 baht. Something I learned as manager that the staff taught me, paying them what they ask for, it's a sign of respect. Furthermore, arguing after the fact brings huge disrespect to that person, and it could cause you a boatload of trouble. You definitely don't want to do that. Along Beach Road, the beachfront of Pattaya, Coconut Bar. Now I'd be very wary about partying with people that you find lingering along this area. So the way it was explained to me, those people are partying there, they may have burnt their bridges elsewhere and are no longer welcome to party in certain bars or any bars or nightclubs for a whole range of reasons that I'll leave up to your imagination. Nothing is off the table. Proceed with great caution. Let's talk about Ladyboys. You have absolutely nothing to worry about. The 2 guys that inspired me to make this video, these muscly young British boys, probably 30 years old, they came into one of the bars when I was managing. They hit me with a gamut of questions, basically the same questions that I'm trying to answer right now. Even though these guys were working overseas, they were incredibly well-traveled, intelligent, educated dudes. It was their first trip to Thailand, certainly Pattaya, and they had no idea how Pattaya worked. They were very curious to learn, so I told them what I'm telling you right now. The thing that they were most concerned about, and I could relieve their stresses, Ladyboys. And I told them what I'll tell you right now. There's nothing to worry about. Transgender, ladyboys, they're completely accepted within Thai culture. If you're seen to be giving them any grief in the street, every other Thai person will rally around them and you'll be in the shit. 99% of the time, they are absolutely not trying to hide anything. They're very proud of who they are. They know that many people come to this country to hang out with them. So if you see them in the street and they holler out at you, you can have a joke with them, smile, say hello, sawadee krap, and keep on rolling. Never being disrespectful. So let's talk about mamasans. What is a mamasan? For most people that work in this industry, mamasans are fantastic. Mamasans are very helpful. A mamasan is female. It's someone who knows the industry very well, usually someone with good English, and someone trusted by the owner to look after the bar staff and to intervene with partygoers in case there's any issues. You generally won't find mamasans employed by big nightclubs, but you'll find them in a lot of the mid-sized bars and the small bars. There's also the phenomena of freelance mamasans. Sometimes you'll see 2 or 3 fairly young partygoers in their early 20s, but they may seem slightly out of their depth. Now they're probably being taken care of by a fairy godmother. An older person who's hanging out nearby that goes bar to bar with them or into the nightclubs with them to make sure their nights go smoothly. Have you ever heard of the 2 AM migration? Now by law, between 2 AM and 4 AM, most of the bars in Pattaya, they have to close. And really, only the nightclubs on Walking Street remain open after this time. Usually at 2 AM sharp, you'll see a great migration of leaving the soys, 8, 7, 6, slow cow, and making their way to the late night spots on Walking Street. For example, nightclubs like iBar, Lucifer, Insomnia, 808, Mist. That migration is a combination of 3 factors. Number 1, most of the bars shutting, and partygoers, punters, and non-working people wanting to kick on. Number 2, freelancers arriving, aware that it's now prime time, hunting hour. And thirdly, salary bar staff that either want to kick on with their workmates after a long shift, or who've had a slow night at work and they want to top up their coffers by hanging out with some punters at an after hours nightclub. And let's remember that respect in this country is a massive thing. So there's a rule to go by. Not every person in a nightclub or a bar is working. So a good rule is to treat every person as though they're there simply to have fun, while in the back of your mind being cognizant that they may be there to work. Now you should treat every person in the street as though they are not working. It's highly offensive to proposition someone on the street if they're not currently working in that industry. I just want to touch on mental illness and stimulant use. I've got a great video that addresses this in detail called Thailand's Crazy Pill. If you go to my homepage, you can find it there. Some people in Pattaya choose to use these stimulants, sometimes as part of their work to keep them awake and energetic and partying. But sadly, long-term use of these chemicals can sometimes bring on a mental illness, a psychosis. So I'm going to give you a few tips on how to look out for this. On a rare occasion, you may notice that a partygoer is in a more elevated mood than what is usual for general alcohol intoxication. You might observe fast motor movements, staring into mirrors, and muttering to oneself is a strong indicator. If you see someone talking to themselves, just subtly listen into the monologue, and if it's completely irrelevant to everything that's going on around you at that time and place, that person could be suffering from a little bit of psychosis or experiencing some effects from using too much of that stimulant. In that case, it's safer to vacate. Every now and then you might be partying with someone and they begin to cry. And that crying seems to have come out of the blue or doesn't seem appropriate for the amount of time that you've known the person. Now, if that happened to me, little alarm bells would be ringing and I would be considering a bit of manipulation might be starting to happen. I'd do a little bit more investigation by conversation, and if it doesn't sit well with me, I'd vacate from that situation as well.